Hello, and welcome to another episode of Character Forge. My name is Tyler Owens, I'll be your character smith, and joining me once more is my wife Leigh as our character artist. We're winding down on our first pass through the classes of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. We only have 3 classes left. We have the Barbarian, the Ranger, and our subject for this week, the Bard. Now, I have to be honest, part of why these 3 classes were left until the end was because of Grumka having levels in Barbarian and Ranger, so I could, rationalize, well, Barbarian and Ranger can be at the end because we've already kind of done those. But also with those two, it's just because neither Barbarian nor Ranger really mesh well with the kinds of characters I usually like to make and play. I mean, they're great classes, they're just not usually for me.
Sometimes you just find that there's a class that is not really your play style, that's not the kind of character you gear towards. You're like, yeah, it's like when you go to Skyrim and you're like, this time I'm going to play a mage who uses a sword, and then the next thing you know, you're sneaking through the shadows with a bow again. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Except for in D&D, if I say I'm going to make a barbarian, then I do make a barbarian.
Well, it's a little harder to accidentally the rogue.
Is it, though?
Yes. I mean, you can multi-class at later levels, but
Arian's not even remotely a bard, or a rogue, so you're right. She's not a bard either.
Yeah, so barbarians and rangers are just not really my gig. The thing about bards is, I don't know that much about bards, to be honest, which is weird, because if I just look at the class in the player's handbook, it should be one that I really love playing. I mean, they've got spells, they can, if you do certain builds, they can do, fighting stuff, they're really versatile, and there's a lot of customization options. It's like everything I love in a class. I mean, I should love playing bards, but somehow when I'm actually building a character, it just doesn't ever come to my mind as an option. I mean, I've only ever played a bard once, and that was a joke for a one-off. Leigh and I decided to make Tulio and Miguel.
Miguel and Tulio!
From the Road to El Dorado, and since I was making Miguel, there was never any choice besides bard. The only time I've ever played a bard, it was adapting a movie character as a joke.
And you played the bard because you didn't deserve the rogue.
But this time it's going to be different. This time I'm adapting a video game character as a joke. So savvy viewers will already know who I'm going to be making from the video title. But if you don't know, there was a bard character in Final Fantasy IV who was named Edward. Honestly, spoilers for an almost 30-year-old game incoming, but I'm going to let Leigh summarize his story, because, she's played Final Fantasy IV way more than I have.
Yeah, no, I grew up on that game. I know it like the back of my hand. I know it better than some strategy guides. But, there's not a lot to Edward's story. So, you run into this old wizard, and he's like, this douchebag charmed my daughter. He's this bard, and he made her fall in love with him, and he's a jerk. And you're like, okay, well, we're headed to this castle to stop some bad guys from stealing your crystal. You get there, and the bad guys are stealing the crystal. You don't stop them because you're incompetent. And lo and behold, it turns out that the bard who got this old dude's daughter is actually the prince of Damcian. Of Dam Cyan. Anyway, Anna, the daughter, had just fallen completely in love with this prince. So much so that she was willing to throw herself in front of him to shield him from the arrows of the bad guys. Because he is the lamest dude ever. And so she dies, because, she got arrowed. And Edward's like, I'm just going to sit here and cry over this corpse while playing my harp. And your dude is like, or depending on the translation, in the Japanese version, you punch them, you, the Dark Knight, punches them. In the English version, most of the time, the little girl that's with you is like, you're a crybaby, and slaps them. But, one of you punches him and says, can you, maybe be a man, perhaps? And how about you go with us on a journey and fight some bad guys? And he's like, no. Well, okay. And then you immediately regret the decision, because he sucks. Every single time he gets down to oh no, I'm gonna die, and he's second status, he runs away. And then you're like, no, come back, I need to heal you. And he comes back, and then he runs away right before you heal him, and he's the worst character ever, and everyone hates him, and he's the worst.
Yep.
Anyway, eventually you fight a battle, and it's part of his, to defend another crystal, and it's kind of his fault, sucking so bad that you lose. You can argue that's not the case, but all I really remember is that he trips and falls, so you have to fight more people, and then you lose. Also, your best friend betrays you. And then you get on a boat, and he falls off the boat, and the next time you find him, he's in a castle that's full of literally nothing but gorgeous women who are taking care of him. And he does the only useful thing he does in the entire game, which is give you a whisperweed that's basically a walkie-talkie, but it's a plant. And then you go into this elf's cave, and the elf is like, everything that's magnetic can't work here, and so you have to have crappy armor and swords and stuff, because I'm weak against iron. And I kill you now, lol. And he's like, oh, I'll play some music through the walkie-talkie weed. And he's like, no, music is my only other weakness. And then you just put all your iron stuff on. And if you're playing the original game, then you kill him. And if you're playing the DS remake, then you don't kill him. It's a hard fight. What the heck? Sorry. I have opinions on the DS remake. It wanted to be really good. It really did. Anyway, so that's Edward. He shows up at like the very end of the game when all your friends are showing up to be like, yeah, you can do it. Have some energy. Don't die to the final boss. And you're like, oh, good, because you started me off at 1 hit point with 1 character. And I'm glad my friends are bringing me back to life, because that would have sucked otherwise.
Yeah. So, the one important takeaway that wasn't mentioned was that so there's that old guy that we talked about. There's this point where, because of the worst translation ever,
right when he finds out that Anna died because she threw himself in front of Edward to protect him from the arrows, he starts attacking Edward because, he was upset that he let his daughter die, as you do. In which case he's casting every spell he can at the bard while screaming, "You spoony bard!" It's great.
Yeah, so Leigh came up with this idea for a picture of Edward playing the spoons while Tella was yelling "You spoony bard" at him, and that image is stuck in my mind. And so I'm going to be making Edward, though we're going to be calling him Gilbert, like the original Japanese version of the game. And we're going to be building him as a bard whose primary instrument is the spoons. So now that we know who he is, let's get to making him. We'll start with...
Do we gotta?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll start with rolling up the stats. Let's see, that's a 15.
There might be other characters I hate more from 4, but I'd have to think about it.
And a 15. And a 13. And a 6. That seems very Gilbert. 14. Hold on. 17. These stats are way too good for Gilbert. I mean...
Why didn't you do, 7s for this guy, right? How come you have to ruin a perfectly good rogue?
I have to say sorry. Sorry, not sorry, hypothetical Edward fans. So let's just change one of those 15s to a 9. Let's just do that.
Yeah.
Okay. We're making him a human because he's a human, so he'll get +1 to all stats. And we're going to be building him at level 5, so we'll have 1 ability score increase. Let's see. With all of that, his final stats would be 10 for strength because he's not strong. 16 for dexterity, and he runs away a lot. He runs away a lot, so he's got to be at least somewhat nimble. 15 for constitution.
Usually he drops like a fly.
Yeah, but I gotta assign things somewhere.
All right. Okay.
14 for intelligence, because he figures out the whisperweed thing and the dispelling magic.
Yeah, I mean he's not stupid. He's just pathetic.
Which is why we're giving him a 7 for wisdom, because fear effects are against wisdom saving throws, so, he needs to...
He needs to suck.
He needs to suck at that. And then a 20 charisma, because, charming bard.
Yeah, that's all he's got going for him.
I mean, this does seem a bit too high for Gilbert, but, this is an adaptation of a character, so we can take a few liberties with how we build him. Alright, let's see. As a bard at first level, we get proficiency in dexterity and charisma saving throws. Let's see. We also get proficiency in 3 musical instruments. So we already said we're going to go with the spoons, because that's the whole joke. We'll go with the harp, because that's what he actually used in the game. And, oh geez, we got a third instrument. This is a joke character, so we're going to give him the nose flute. Because why not? Let's see. As a bard, we get to choose 3 proficiencies. Any 3 skill proficiencies we want. Bards are really versatile in skills. Because Gilbert's a noble, we get the history and persuasion skills from our background. So I'm going to choose acrobatics, performance, and arcana, again, because of the whole understanding to dispel the elf's curse thing.
No, arcana makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, and while I'm here and looking at it, let's just take averages for hit points with our Constitution modifier. That gives us, let's see, 38 hit points at level 5.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Let's see. At first level, we also get spell casting. We're going to go over that later. And we get Bardic Inspiration. So Bardic Inspiration allows us to use our bonus action to give someone within 60 feet of us a Bardic Inspiration die, which they can use to increase 1 ability check, attack roll, or saving throw within the next 10 minutes. It's kind of like a beefed up version of like guidance and resistance, but with like more features than either of those spells, and it's just like all around better. It's like a beefed up version of those spells. Let's see.
Perspective on spoons turns out to be hard to draw.
Yeah, sorry. Let's see. At 5th level, our Bardic Inspiration grants a D8. And because of our Charisma modifier, we have 5 uses of Bardic Inspiration between long rests.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. At 2nd level, we get Jack of all Trades, which allows us to add half of our proficiency bonus to any ability check that we don't already have proficiency in. Which, by the way, includes initiative. It's one of the few ways to get a bonus to initiative in the game, so it's pretty cool. Let's see. Also, at 2nd level, we get access to the Song of Rest. Basically, while we're taking a short rest, we can play our instrument, and anyone who listens to our performance and uses at least 1 hit die to regain HP can regain an additional 1d6 HP on top of that.
Fun fact linked to this, a lot of the music in Final Fantasy IV has kind of a, it's chiptune, but a lot of a harp thing to it, so I like to pretend that Edward plays a lot of it, which kind of melds with this.
Oh, dang it.
Well.
So, yeah. And just to be clear, because it confused me a little bit when I was first reading it, that's just 1d6 HP. It's not 1d6 HP per hit dice that you spend. So it's just a flat little bit on top of it. At 3rd level, we get to choose Expertise in 2 of our skills. We're going to choose Performance and Persuasion. And Expertise allows us to double our proficiency bonus for these checks. Let's see. Before we get to the Bardic College, which we also get at 3rd level, I'm just going to mention 4th level we had our ability score increase, which we already talked about. At 5th level, we get the Font of Inspiration ability, which allows us to regain our uses of Bardic Inspiration every time we take a short or long rest, rather than just at long rests. So that's pretty neat. We now, at 5th level, we get 5 Bardic Inspiration uses between every rest, not just at long rests. So that's pretty neat. Alright, now to choose the Bardic College. This took a little bit of figuring, especially since I'm not I'm less familiar with Edward, and I'm less familiar with bards, so I had to powwow with Leigh a little bit about it. I think
It's the real purpose of wives, you know.
I think, given his personality and the world of Final Fantasy IV, that the best choice for Gilbert is the College of Glamour from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. At 3rd level, the College of Glamour allows us to expend 1 use of our Bardic Inspiration feature to give up to our Charisma modifier number of creatures who we can see and who can see us within 60 feet to gain 8 temporary hit points and to use their reaction to move up to their speed without provoking opportunity attacks. So basically, instead of giving somebody Bardic Inspiration, we can make it so a bunch of people get, up to 5 people get 8 temporary hit points and can move up to their speed without provoking opportunity attacks. So it's a really great way to both give people hit points and also let them move around the battlefield. Also at 3rd level, we gain the Enthralling Performance feature. Okay, so this one's a little bit involved. What it does is it allows us to make a 1-minute performance. And at the end of that performance, as a DM, I don't think it has to only be 1 minute. Like, if you're doing this performance for this long time, you can have it, be part of the performance, just as long as it's at least 1 minute. At the end of this performance, we choose up to our Charisma modifier number of creatures who watched and listened to that entire minute. And we get to they have to make a Wisdom saving throw. If they fail, they are charmed by us. But this isn't a regular charm. This goes above the usual charm effect, because it also makes it so that they idolize you, they speak very highly of you, and they will hinder all those that are opposed to you, although they do still avoid violence unless they were already inclined to fight for you. The effect ends after 1 hour, or if the target takes any damage. If you attack it, so even if you don't hit it, if you attack it, it ends. Or if it witnesses you attacking or damaging any of its allies. The kicker here that makes this really nice is that unlike normal charm spells, if the target succeeds on the Wisdom saving throw, they do not know that you attempted to charm them. That is big. Most spells that do the charm effect, the creature either if they pass the saving throw or at the end of the spell know that they've been charmed, which can get you in some really big trouble with people because
some hilarious
people don't like to be charmed. But this is really nice because it makes it so they don't have to know that you've done anything, they're just. This isn't really a combat ability per se because it takes an entire minute to cast, and you attacking things will get rid of it. But this could be a really powerful thing for, say, if you're going to a kingdom and you're invited to perform for the king and his advisors. Well, if there's only 5 of them, then right there you've charmed all 5 of them, and now for the next hour they're going to, do what you want them to do and won't be any wiser for it. So it's a really powerful ability in roleplay. Alright, now we need to talk about spell casting. Bards use Charisma as their primary casting stat, which means that we have a spell save DC of 16 and a spell attack bonus of +8. Bards don't have to prepare spells, they just know a certain number of spells, and they can cast any of them that they know. At 5th level, we know 3 cantrips and 8 spells. And we have 4 first-level spell slots, 3 second-level spell slots, and 2 third-level spell slots to cast these spells. Also, bards are ritual casters, which means that if a spell has the ritual tag, we can cast it as a ritual, which does not take our one of our spell slots. This is usually for spells that have like 10-minute casting times. Not something you'd be doing in combat at all. Just, something that you want to do that you would rather it not take up a spell slot. And it's important to know that not all casters are ritual casters. Like the Eldritch Knight we did in the last episode, Eldritch Knights are not ritual casters. Any spell they cast, they have to use a spell slot for. Now, if you're building an Eldritch Knight to have a spell that's a ritual, what are you doing?
Rethink your life choices.
But it's important that they're not. But bards are ritual casters. Let's see. And we also can use a musical instrument as a spellcasting focus. So we don't just play the spoons, we play the magical spoons.
What is even happening with this character? And why does Edward deserve it?
So let's go ahead and pick our spells.
His weapon literally is a harp in the game.
Yeah.
And honestly, he does have different abilities like being able to charm enemies and whatnot. So
yeah.
Actually, it's not a bad conversion at all.
Let's see. For our cantrips, I think it makes the most sense to choose Blade Ward, because, he's always trying to avoid damage. Vicious Mockery, because that's, he has a harp. That's how he attacks, is by playing his harp at people. And I think the closest thing we can get to that is Vicious Mockery.
Although, let's be honest, usually if there's Vicious Mockery going on, it's aimed at him.
Well, that's how he's so good at it. He's been the recipient of it so much that he knows how to throw it back at people now.
I gotta say, usually he just cries, but we can pretend like he actually makes sense in this. Well, it's not that he just makes sense. It's like he's less pathetic in this D&D rendition.
Yeah.
Slightly.
And then we're gonna take that slightly less pathetic that you're thinking right now, and we're gonna knock it right back down into Edward territory by giving him the Friends spell. Man, there are some really great uses for Friends, but on the whole, like, you charm someone for 1 minute and then they hate you afterwards. Like,
most of the time, when that's been used in our games, it's been for shenanigans and has been pretty exclusively used on other players.
Yeah. Yeah, we had one in that same one-off, actually, where we were playing Tulio and Miguel. Two of the other players just kept casting Friends back and forth at each other.
That's one of the first things one of the characters did, is cast on other characters, so they just spent the entire session doing that to each other.
Yeah.
We'd have like a beat, and they'd be like, "What are you guys doing?" "I cast Friends on."
Yeah. Alright, so for our 8 spells that we know, we can have at most 2 third-level spells, which is great, because there were 2 third-level spells that I really, really wanted to take with the build, which is the entire reason why we started at level 5 rather than at a lower level. Those 2 spells are Sending, which is our facsimile of that Whisperweed.
Walkie weed?
Yes.
Never mind. Whisperweed.
And the other is Dispel Magic, because that's the one useful thing he does in the entire game, is to get rid of that elf's stupid curse.
Literally the worst.
So those are our 2 third-level spells, Sending and Dispel Magic.
Hot tip, when you're first going through the cave, just go directly to the elf and pick up all the treasure after you can put on your real equipment.
Yeah. So we have 6 more spells to pick, and up to 4 of them can be second-level spells, but I think we're going to break it up 3 and 3. So for our first-level spells, we're going to take Detect Magic. We'll take Cure Wounds, because bards can't get, but B, we don't have high enough spell levels for mass healing word, so we're just going to go with Cure Wounds. But one of Edward's abilities in the game is you can use a healing item and have it affect the entire party. at a much at a lesser degree of efficacy than a normal healing item on one person. But that's the closest. It was a choice between healing word and cure wounds, and pick whichever one you want for this build. It doesn't necessarily super matter. I went with cure wounds, but that's just me. And of course, for our third first level spell, we have to go with Charm Person, because that's what got him in this trouble with Tella in the first place.
Who's Spoony Bard? I'm gonna add a chibi Tella based on the memory here. The spectacles. They're purple, guys.
And for our second level spells, we're going to take Lesser Restoration, because Edward isn't good enough to have full restoration. We're going to take Enhance Ability, since next to him, all of your party members look like paragons. # shot fired. And...
I mean, the other people you have with you are like Rydia, who's awesome. She kind of sucks right then, but she's also a kid. But she's awesome. And Cecil, who kills stuff.
Well, I mean, like, compared to the in D&D sense, like, the other party members will always look better next to Gilbert here.
That's why you invite him, because he makes you look better by comparison.
Yeah, so he has the Enhance Ability spell.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to take Invisibility, because that's the closest thing we can get to simulating his stupid hiding thing.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And with that, we are done building Gilbert. Thanks again to Leigh for drawing her character for us. You can follow her on Instagram at Ree the Wordsmith, or you can read her webcomic at monochromecomic.com.
It's
Links...
not an or thing. You can do both.
Well, yes, you can do both. Links, as always, are in the description. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure to like, comment, tell your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss out next week when we build a barbarian whose treachery goes back generations. And until next time, keep those forges lit.